Dad kicked me out after my stepmom framed me for stealing my stepsister's college savings. Hey, so my estranged father reached out to me recently and I need to know if I did the right thing or not since a lot of people have been giving me flack for how I reacted. So for context, he and I have not been on speaking terms for the last 8 years. I was 21 back when he kicked me out and had just graduated college. So I was living with my family for a couple of months before I started working and saved enough money to move out. My parents got divorced when I was 7, and when I turned 17, my dad started dating my stepmom. Becca, my stepmother, had also been married before, but unfortunately her husband had passed away 6 years before she started dating my father. She also had a daughter from her previous relationship, my stepsister Alexa, who was 4 years younger than me. The first time that I met Becca and Alexa, I sort of got a really weird vibe from them, like they were not happy to meet me. But I thought that maybe they were just shy and I didn't think much of it. But the more time I spent with them, the less I thought they liked me. After 1 year of dating, Becca and Alexa moved in with us, but that was the year that I moved out for college, so I didn't spend much time with them at home. I would only get to see my family when I would come back home for the holidays, and every time that I would come back, they would always act very weird around me. They got married when I was in my 2nd year, and even then, they didn't seem to like me. I don't exactly know how to put it into words, but it was like they did not appreciate me being around and seemed much happier when it was just them and my father. After graduation, when I moved back in with the intention of staying at home so I could save some money before permanently moving out, I decided to talk to my father about this because I didn't want to live in a house where I felt unwelcome all the time. When I discussed it with him, though, he told me that I was just imagining it and Becca and Alexa loved me. So I decided to believe what he was saying and moved back in, but within a couple of weeks, he had been proven wrong. They definitely did not love me, and if anything, they actually hated having me around. Becca was constantly cold to me and rarely ever even acknowledged my existence, and Alexa seemed to have it in for me and was constantly trying to get on my nerves and pick fights with me. I brought it up with my dad a couple of times, but because their behavior around him was very different. He thought that I was just reading too much into the situation and that they were probably just getting used to having me around now. This went on for a couple of months, and no matter how much I tried to avoid them, they just kept trying to make life difficult for me, and after a while, I even stopped complaining to my father about it because there was no point. All I wanted was just to save enough money to be able to move out. But I was kicked out of my home quite unceremoniously because Becca and Alexa framed me for stealing her college savings. One day, I had left the house around noon to go house hunting with a couple of my friends because Becca and Alexa were driving me crazy and I really wanted to move out as soon as possible. I came back home in the evening and my dad was already there. He looked extremely disappointed and told me to pack my stuff and leave as soon as I entered the house. I had no idea what was going on, and I was caught off guard. When I asked him what was going on, he told me that he had never expected me to turn out to be such a desperate lowlife, and he had never thought that I would stoop to such levels just for money. I had no idea what he was talking about, and I had tears in my eyes because the things he was saying were really harsh. But instead of trying to talk to me, he told me that he had no time for my act and he just wanted me to leave now. Then, Becca entered the room and started shrieking at me for ruining Alexa's future and claimed that I had done all of this because I couldn't stand the fact that my father had finally moved on. While she was screaming at me about what I had supposedly done, I was able to piece together the story, and apparently, they were accusing me of stealing money from them from a car that they had lent me for emergencies and I had instead used that for luxury purchases. Becca claimed that I had apparently come to her a few weeks ago and said that I was running short on money, so she had made me an add-on on the account where she saved money for Alexa. But I had almost drained the account entirely, and now there was no money left for Alexa to go to college. Apparently, I had lied about what I needed the money for and had bought several new bags, shoes, and clothes from really expensive brands with the money that she had put aside for her daughter. I was appalled because none of this had happened and she was lying through her teeth. So I told her to show me the proof of all of this, and my dad said that there was no need for that because apparently they had gone through my room a couple of hours ago and they had already found everything they needed to confirm her story. He said that he had found all the items that had been purchased on that card stashed away under my bed secretly, and of course, when I told my father that she had never even added me on the card because if she had, I would have known. He told me that she had removed me after she received a phone call from the bank that morning itself. It had taken a few hours, but now it was done, and when I told him to call the bank authorities to confirm this, he told me that he did not need any more proof to know that his daughter was a disgusting person and a thief. No matter how hard I tried to convince him that Becca was lying, he did not believe me, and eventually I had to leave. After that day, I did not have any contact with my father. He had shown me where his priorities were, and after the way I had been insulted, I never wanted to reach out to him again. I spent a couple of days with a friend before moving into my first apartment, and I struggled with money for a couple of months. But after that, I was able to make it on my own. I lead a pretty nice life now, and I'm even planning on buying my own house in a couple of months. For 8 years, I have had absolutely no contact with my father, and I have avoided every family event on my father's side, like the plague, because I just never wanted to see him. My mother and I have kept in touch, and she had also cut off my father around the same time that I did because of the way he had behaved with me. But right now, she's kind of taking his side, which is why I am confused. Anyway, a couple of days ago, my dad showed up at my house and I was very curious to know what he had to say. So I opened the door to speak to him, and he told me that he had got the address from my mother. He told me that he was here to apologize to me for everything, because only recently did he find out that my stepmom had made up the entire thing because she wanted somebody to cover Alexa's college fund. For years, she had been using him for his money, and he had no idea because he thought he was just supporting his family. But after what he had just found out from his in-laws, he wanted me to forgive him and give him a chance. Apparently, Becca had had a fight with her parents a couple of months ago, and they had recently reached out to my father to let him know the truth about the incident over which he had kicked me out. So basically, just as I had suspected, she had bought all those things for herself and her daughter, but she instead placed them in my room to frame me and make it seem like I was hiding things. For good measure, she had even had her parents call her, pretending to be bank employees, and convinced my dad that she had in fact made me an add-on on the card. The real reason she had done all of this was because she was the one who had drained the college fund that her deceased husband had left for Alexa with her extravagant lifestyle, and she didn't want to have to ask my father to cover her expenses because she didn't want to come off as a gold digger. And she also hated me because she thought that my relationship with my father was going to get in their way. And that's why she had always disliked me. That's how she came up with that plan, so she could get rid of me, and also create a situation where my father himself would have to offer to cover Alexa's college expenses. And she was able to kill two birds with one stone when that plan succeeded. For 8 years, her parents had said nothing, but recently, because of their fight, they had decided that it was finally time to dig up old skeletons out of the closet and tell my father the truth. He told me that he had already filed for a divorce from her a couple of weeks ago with the help of his old lawyer, and now he had come to reconcile with me. He said that he knew one of my friend's fathers was a really reputed divorce attorney, and now he wanted me to fulfill my duty as his daughter and help him out by putting him in touch with my friend's dad, because Becca and her lawyer had come up with a ridiculously one-sided petition. My dad also wanted me to get a lawyer. He wanted to agree to lower his rates for my father. It was so outrageous that I literally ended up laughing in his face before shutting the door. I couldn't imagine that he had actually believed that he would just come by, apologize to me, and then ask me for help and everything would be fine again. I was obviously not going to be helping him in any way whatsoever, and if he wanted to hire my friend's father as a lawyer, then he would have to do whatever everyone else does, contact him himself, and pay the price that everyone else does. It was not my problem that his old lawyer was unwilling to fight this case because it seemed too complicated, and he just wanted to retire. So after I shut the door in his face, I told him to go away before I called the cops. I didn't think that there was anything left to say, but after that, my mother called me up to let me know that what I was doing was not right. I honestly have no idea why she's on my dad's side all of a sudden, but I got really mad when she told me that she didn't agree with my decision of not helping him. She said that everyone makes mistakes and my dad was also a normal human being, just like us. So it was not fair for me to hold him to an unrealistic standard and act like it was not okay for him to make mistakes just because he was my father. It was not that I had a problem with the fact that he had made a mistake by trusting his wife, but my problem was with the fact that he had trusted her over me, his daughter. And I still haven't forgotten the fact that he had called me a disgusting person and a desperate lowlife when he kicked me out of the house. He had raised me. He literally knew me, and in spite of that, he thought that I was capable of doing such a nasty thing that I was being accused of. It was the fact that even after 8 years, he was not just here to say sorry but to ask for my help. If he hadn't needed my help, I don't think he would have shown up to apologize. It took him 8 years to realize that he had made a mistake, and here he was, repeating exactly the kind of behavior that I had hated him for. I tried to explain this to my mother, but she just kept saying that he had accepted his fault no matter how late it was, and that counted for something. So instead of acting like this, I should forgive him and be the bigger person because I definitely should help him out. The thing is, I don't think I can help him out even if I want to because granted, my friend and I are very close and I'm pretty sure that I can ask him to talk to his dad and work with my father. But I don't think I will be able to convince them to lower their cost because the best divorce attorney in town doesn't come for cheap. So why would I even commit to something that I'm not even sure I would be able to pull off? My mother and I ended up arguing about this for about half an hour, and both of us were pretty irritated with each other by the end of the phone call. She just refused to see where I was coming from and I didn't understand what she was even talking about, because I didn't think she made sense. And now we are also not speaking to each other and I'm wondering if I made a mistake or not. I don't think that what I did with my father was that wrong, but my mother's reaction is making me think otherwise. Ida for refusing to help my estranged father with his divorce? Update 1. So I've decided that I'm going to stay away from both my parents. You guys in the comments are right, I don't owe my father anything after how he treated me. And the fact that he apologized to me literally weeks after finding out the truth just goes to show that he wouldn't have apologized if he did not need my help. Thank you so much to everyone who commented, I really needed that. As for my mother, I don't really know what's gotten into her and why she's taking my dad's side after years of not speaking to him, but I don't really want to find out what's going on either. On the phone call, I asked her if she was talking to my dad and if she was in touch with him. She said no. She told me that for the past 8 years, after I had been kicked out, she had not had any contact with my father, but he had been the one to reach out to her on the day that I slammed the door shut in his face. She told me that he had been crying, and that's why she had decided to hear him out, because my father is not exactly a very emotional man, and it's very difficult to make him cry, so she wanted to know what was going on that had made him call her. And that's how she found out what had happened when he tried to apologize to me. But apart from that, she had never spoken to him before in the last 8 years. I find that hard to believe now, since she was exactly in the same place as I was. She would find it more difficult to forgive him. Back when my parents got divorced and continued to co-parent me, they were really good friends, and I suppose this incident has made them reconnect or something. Whatever it is, my mother's reaction made me realize that she doesn't know me as well as I thought she did, and she definitely doesn't understand me, because if she did, she wouldn't have gotten mad at me for not forgiving my dad instantly. Anyway, I'm just gonna stay away from both of them. It's not going to be hard not to speak to my dad, because I've been doing that for the past 8 years already, but it's going to be very difficult not to interact with my mother either. For several years, she has pretty much been the only family that I knew, and now I've lost her as well. I feel bad about it, but again, there's not much that I can do. I'm going to give her a week to apologize for what she said and how she reacted, and if she comes to her senses within that timeline, then it's great, but if she doesn't, I don't even know what I'll do then. I might have to cut her off permanently after that, and even the thought of that makes me very sad. But I can't help it. I have to look out for myself as well. Update 2. Okay. So 1 week has not yet passed, but my mom did reach out to me. Unfortunately, it was not to apologize. I hadn't blocked her on anything because I wanted to see if she was going to talk to me or not. And she did. She texted me yesterday, asking if she could visit me and talk to me in person because she thought it would be better to clear the air personally. I agreed to let her visit because I wanted to sort things out with her as well. And I honestly thought she was going to apologize, so when she came over, I was very nice to her, and she started off by telling me that she had been thinking about the last conversation that we had had, and maybe she hadn't tried to understand me that well, so she was here to give that conversation another shot. I thought it was a bit weird that she was asking me to repeat the same things, but I did, hoping that it would help her understand that I was coming, and then maybe she would find it easier to apologize to me, so we could end this once and for all. But after I was done explaining my feelings on this whole situation, she told me that now that we had calmly discussed this, she wanted me to have the same conversation with my father, because she knew that I was capable of answering with dignity instead of slamming doors shut, and my dad deserved an explanation for everything. Because even when he had thought that I had stolen Becca's money, he did not call the cops on me, and he even convinced Becca to do the same. It doesn't matter that everything was made up. What matters is that he tried his best to protect me even when he thought that I had done the wrong thing. So the least I could do was give him a chance to talk to me, and she said that she knew she had raised her daughter who was kind at heart and wouldn't say no to this. But I told her that she didn't know me as well as she thought she did, and I had no forgiveness in my heart for my father because he had treated me like crap in the past, and I don't owe him anything, not even an explanation. I was very upset that even after all of this, she had not apologized to me. So I told her that after this, she should only contact me if she wanted to apologize, and otherwise, I did not want to speak to her. But then she started fidgeting and said that I shouldn't act this way because at the end of the day, family is all that we have, and if we can't even rely on them to forgive us when we are wrong, then it'll be a miserable existence for us. I thought it was just a bunch of BS, and I told her that I did not want to speak to her and discuss this any further, so I asked her to leave. That was when she finally told me that she couldn't leave because she had promised my father that she would get me to talk to him, and unless I told her that I would talk to him at least once, she couldn't go, because she had to live up to her promises, and she really wanted me to work things out with my dad. She claimed that she did not want to lose me, and she was really sorry that I felt like both my parents had let me down, but ultimately, they were my parents and I should forgive them, because the few things that they had done wrong were nothing in comparison to everything that they had done right in the past. And that counts for something. I thought it was ridiculous for her to even say that, and I told her that it was her mistake that she had made promises to my father that she didn't even know she could live up to, and it was not my responsibility to make sure she was able to stay true to her word. I asked her to leave once again, but then she finally told me that she couldn't because my dad was sitting outside in the car, and he was waiting to be called inside, and she didn't want to let him down. That's when I finally snapped and I started screaming at my mother because this was a violation. I had made it very clear to her that I did not want to speak to my father, and she had taken the liberty of bringing him here, convinced that she could change my mind. Of course, I lost my temper and I started screaming at her. I told her that she was a terrible mother and I was done with her. She started crying, but it made no difference to me because I was furious. I just kept telling her to get out, and she kept saying that she was sorry about all of this, but I was in no mood to hear it. She finally left after about 15 minutes of arguing, and while she was leaving, I screamed at her. and I told her that if she or my father ever came back, then I would make sure to call the cops on them. Then I blocked her, and I think I'm going to talk to a lawyer about getting a protective order against these people if they decide to visit me again. Update 3. Alright, so something literally insane happened today, and I don't even know how to talk to anybody about it. And that's why I'm here to talk about it, because I really need to get this off my chest. So today, I was at home because I had a day off and I planned on doing nothing, but then Becca and Alexa showed up. And that's not even the most crazy part of what happened today. Of course, when I realized that they were standing outside my door, I was infuriated and I told them to get away instantly, and I had even dialed the number to call the cops, but Becca told me that she was not there to harass me, but to tell me the truth about my father and why exactly he needed my help. She was just as nasty and rude as before, and it was good to know that she hadn't changed in 8 years. But I had no interest in speaking to her initially, so I told her that whatever it is that she had to say, I wasn't interested. But then, she said that I would definitely be interested if I knew what she was here to an explanation as to why my mother was suddenly on my dad's side after not speaking to him for years, supposedly. I'm not gonna lie, that caught me by surprise because I didn't think she would know about any of this, and I really wanted to know what was going on, so after some deliberation, I invited her in. But she refused to even step inside my house and said that she was only here to tell me the truth, and then she would be gone with her daughter. Standing right outside my door, she told me that a couple of weeks ago, her parents had revealed the truth about the incident that had taken place 8 years back to my father, and they got into a massive fight over it, and he decided to head for a divorce. The reason she had been fighting with her parents was because she stopped sending them money every month like she used to, because even my father wasn't giving her the kind of allowance that she wanted, and she got a bit too greedy. In case anyone wanted to know what exactly they had been fighting about, and because my father had cut down her allowance without an explanation, she decided to do some sleuthing and found out that my dad was having an affair with my mother, and she realized that he was probably planning on leaving her, which is why he had been saving money. So she decided to stay with him, and then she would file for a divorce on her own terms eventually, but before she could do that, my dad found out the truth, and their whole fight happened, and both of them found out about each other's true colors. Under normal circumstances, it would have been very easy for my dad to end this marriage without giving Becca doubt, but because he had also been cheating and had been unfaithful to her, and Becca hadn't worked in the past 10 years, she drew up a petition that would benefit her, and he wasn't fine with that, which is why they were fighting tooth and nail right now. The reason she was telling me about all of this was that a couple of days ago, my father had apparently threatened her on the phone and told her to back off because I was apparently going to put him in touch with the divorce attorney, and then she would be screwed. Obviously, he was bluffing, but Becca did not want to take that risk, so she had come to tell me the truth. I was literally shocked that all of this was happening, but in a way, I was glad that I finally had an explanation as to why my mother had been acting so strange about my father. Once Becca had told me everything, she told me that it was up to me whether I wanted to help my dad or not, and then she left. For the first time in her life, she had been of some actual use to me, and I'm grateful to her. After this, there is no way that I'm ever going to keep in touch with my parents again. I can't believe that my mother tried to gaslight me into believing that my dad deserved a second chance for her own selfish reasons. My parents truly are a match made in heaven. They definitely belong with each other, and I'm glad that I'm not in their life anymore. I'm gonna be living on my own now, and I would like to thank my lucky stars that I had the good sense not to forgive any of them. Update 4. Hi. So it has been a couple of months since I posted here, and people wanted to know how things were going with me. So it's been going pretty well, and I'm pretty happy on my own. I do occasionally miss my mother, but then I remind myself of how she betrayed me, and then it's a bit easier for me to deal with her absence. I heard from a couple of relatives that my dad is now back with my mother again, and his divorce was finalized a few weeks ago, I think. I don't know what exactly he lost in the divorce, and I'm not interested in knowing either. Some of my relatives have been invited to my parents' wedding in a couple of weeks. They wanted me to know about it in case I want to show up and make things right with them, but I don't really care, and I definitely do not want to make anything right with them. I'm happier and better off on my own. So that's how life is right now, and I'm pretty content.